We landed on Calypso IV at dawn, our dropship cutting through the dense, amber-tinted atmosphere like a knife. The planet had once been a thriving colony, a beacon of humanity's expansion into the stars. But now it was a ghost world, abandoned and silent for reasons no one had been able to explain. The last transmission from the colony had been over a decade ago, a garbled message that hinted at something terrible, but the details were lost in the static. Our mission was simple: investigate the colony, retrieve any data, and if possible, find out what happened to the 3,000 souls who had called this place home. As we descended, the sprawling remains of the colony came into view, rows of structures stretching out beneath us, eerily intact, but devoid of any signs of life. The buildings stood like silent sentinels, their windows dark, their walls weathered by years of neglect. We touched down in the main square, the heart of what had once been a bustling community. The silence was oppressive, heavy, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Our footsteps echoed off the cracked pavement as we moved cautiously, scanning the area for any sign of movement, but there was nothing. Not a single sound, not even the whisper of wind. It was as if the planet had been frozen in time. Dr. Lena Foster, our mission's lead scientist, led the way to the Central Command building. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and the scent of decay. The power was still on, a faint hum emanating from the walls, but the systems were sluggish, old, as if they hadn't been touched in years. We split up to search for clues, logs, reports, anything that might tell us what had happened. As we explored, strange things began to happen. Doors that had been closed moments before were suddenly open. Equipment that had been functioning perfectly began to malfunction, lights flickering, screens showing static, voices whispering in the comms, too faint to make out. It was as if the colony itself was haunted, echoes of the past bleeding into the present. We regrouped in the command center, where Dr. Foster had managed to access the colony's last recorded data. The logs were fragmented, corrupted, but what we could recover painted a disturbing picture. The colonists had been working on something deep beneath the surface, a project called Echo. The details were sparse, but it seemed to involve the discovery of an alien artifact, something ancient, buried for eons under Calypso IV's crust. The logs describe how the artifact emitted a signal, a low-frequency pulse that resonated through the colony's infrastructure. At first, it had seemed like a breakthrough, proof of intelligent life beyond Earth, but then things had started to go wrong. The signal grew stronger, infiltrating every system, every mind. The colonists began to experience strange phenomena, hallucinations, missing time, the sensation of being watched. It wasn't long before they realized the artifact wasn't just a relic. It was a beacon, and it had been activated. As we listened to the logs, the room grew colder, the lights dimming until we were barely able to see. Then the whispers started, soft at first, barely audible, but growing louder, more insistent. We spun around, scanning the room, but we were alone. Yet the feeling of being watched was undeniable, like eyes boring into the back of our skulls. Dr. Foster continued to dig through the data, her fingers trembling as she pieced together the last entries. The colonists had tried to shut down the artifact, but it was too late. The signal had already spread, reaching out beyond the planet, into the stars. It was calling something ancient and malevolent, something that answered. The final log was from the colony's director, a man named Elias Granger. His voice was strained, filled with fear and desperation as he described the last days of the colony. The signal had taken over, twisting their minds, turning them against each other. People disappeared. Whole sections of the colony were swallowed by darkness, as if reality itself was unraveling. In his last entry, Granger spoke of hearing echoes of voices calling out from the walls, the floors, from within his own mind. They weren't alone anymore. He said, the colony was filled with echoes, fragments of people who were no longer there. The whispers around us grew louder, almost deafening, and then the lights went out completely. In the darkness, we could hear footsteps, heavy and slow, moving closer, though our scanners picked up nothing. Panic set in as we fumbled for our lights, our weapons, but when the lights flickered back on, the room was empty, just as it had been before. Yet the sense of dread lingered, a cold hand gripping our hearts. We knew then that whatever had happened to the colony wasn't over. The artifact, the signal, it had left something behind, an echo of its own, something that existed between the fabric of reality and whatever lay beyond. The colony was no longer just a place, it was a trap, a nexus where past and present collided, where the souls of the lost were caught, forever reliving their final moments. We left Calypso IV as quickly as we could, but the silence followed us, the echoes of the silent colony haunting our every step. As we ascended back into orbit, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had awakened something that should have remained buried. The artifact's signal still pulsed faintly in the ship's systems, a reminder of what we had found and what we had left behind. We're carrying those echoes with us now, a fragment of the silent colony bound for home. I don't know if we've escaped it or if we've only brought it closer to Earth, but I do know one thing: whatever we encountered on Calypso IV, it isn't finished with us yet. This is the last entry I'll make before we reach Earth. If anyone reads this, be warned. The echoes of the silent colony are still out there, waiting to be heard. Thank you for watching The Stories Wonderland, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories.